For these questions, you're going to measure some lines and then find the sum of the lines. So we're going to measure each line to the nearest quarter inch. A quarter is just 1/4 of a whole. In decimals, the fourths are 25 hundredths, 50 hundredths, 75 hundredths, and 1.0. After we measure each line, then we're going to find the sum. And the sum is just the answer to an addition problem. So we're going to measure and then add them up. This is a ruler, and it may look similar to your ruler, but notice on every ruler there's usually two different scales. One's for the inches and one's for the centimeters. So make sure that you're using the correct side of the ruler for whatever problem you're going to be answering. In this case, we're going to be using the inches side. So this is 1 inch. We can mark the end of an inch with a line, and that rectangle that we just made is 1 inch long rectangle. But we're going to be measuring in fourths. However, if we look closely at this ruler, we can see that the ticks are not fourths already. I know that because when I go to start counting the ticks, I can see that they make 8 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So these little ticks are actually measuring the eighths. So this would be 1/8 of the line and so forth. But our problem isn't asking for eighths, our problem is asking for fourths. What I know is that there is a way to find the fourths, and it starts by finding the halves. So right there is a half. So this is a 1/2 inch at this spot. So from here to here is a 1/2 inch. But I know to find a 1/4 of an inch that I can just half the half. So here is the half. If I cut that half in half again, that would be a 1/4. And if I look at the back half and I cut it in half again, that would be another 1/4. So here we have a visual of what fourths look like on an inch. Notice the eighths are right in the middle of the fourths. We don't have to worry about the eighths though. We're focusing on the fourths. A way to make it easy to see is that you can color in your fourths like this. So I have the first fourth, 1/4 is blue, 1/4 is yellow, one is green, and one is purple. Here's a picture of what that might look like if you did it in real life. This can help you figure out answers until you get really good at using the ruler. Okay, let's do number 1. Notice that I lined the ruler up, not at the beginning of the ruler, but I lined up the first tick with the beginning of the line that we're going to measure. So when you begin measuring, you always start at the beginning and then just see how long your line is. I know it's longer than 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5. It keeps going. It's even going past the 6, but it didn't go past the 7. So I know that the length of this line is going to be 6 inches and something else, a little bit more. So what I need to do is think about this ruler. Now remember, the smallest ticks are eighths, so we don't need to even count those ticks. We're going to count the middle-sized ticks as the fourths. The bigger tick is actually the halves, and the biggest tick is the wholes. So starting here, if we ignore this, this is going to be 1/4, the first fourth. If we keep going, we'll see that the next one is 2/4. Well, we also said that this medium-sized tick is also a half, and in this case, the line is ending right in the half of 6 and 7. So the halfway mark, if you're using decimals, is 50 hundredths. 6 and 50 hundredths. So this line is 6 and 50 hundredths. Let me show you why 2/4 is the same as a half. So if you had a rectangle and it was cut into halves and you shaded in 1/2, so this represents 1/2. Well, if you took the same shape and you broke it into fourths, notice now that you have 2/4 colored. So 2/4 is equivalent to 1/2. So when we count these ticks, we could count 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, and just know that 2/4 means a half. So let's look at another one. Okay, so on number 2, notice again I've lined it up, and this line's a little bit longer. I can see it goes past the 11, but not all the way to the 12. So it's going to be 11 and something. So what I need to do is see at what point does the line stop. Now remember, the shortest lines on this ruler we don't count because these are 8ths. So we're going to skip the short ones and only count the second to shortest ones. So this one would be 1/4, and that's where the line stops. So 11 and 1/4. But remember, the decimal that corresponds with 1/4 is 25 hundredths. So this line is 11 and 25 hundredths. So let's look at number 3. Again, we have it lined up, so I'm going to follow the line. It's past the 10, but it didn't even get to the 11. So this line is going to be 10 inches and a little bit more. And now we're going to figure out how much more. Okay, so let's ignore the smallest tick. So this would be 1/4, 2/4, 3/4. So this line ends at 10 and 3/4. Remember, the decimal equivalent to 3/4 is 75 hundredths. You can always think about decimals and fourths as in quarters. 1/4 is 25 cents, 2/4 is 50 cents, 3/4 is 75 cents, and 4/4 is $1. Okay, let's look at this one. Notice I have it lined up. It goes all the way, and I see that it ends exactly on 12. So I know that the length of this line is going to be exactly 12. It's a whole number, there's no extra little part. Okay, for number 5, I have it lined up. So I'm going to follow the line. It's going past the 7, past the 8, but not quite to the 9. So I know it's going to be 8 inches and a little bit more. So I'm going to start counting the ticks, but ignoring the smallest one. So this is 1/4. Notice this line goes a tiny bit past 1/4. So then we have to think a little bit. If this is 1/4 right here, and this is 1/2 right here, or 2/4 you could say, you have to decide which is the line closer to, because the directions say take it to the nearest 1/4 inch. So since the line is closer to this one, we're going to say that it's 8 and 25 hundredths, or 8 and 1/4. All right, let's try one more. If we have it lined up correctly, we can see that it goes exactly to the 2. So this line is 2 inches. A symbol for inches looks like quotation marks. So if you ever see this symbol with quotation marks, you know that it's going to be 2 inches. Okay, so these are the lengths that we measured for each of the lines, but the last step was to find the sum of the lines. So that means we need to just add up all these digits. So I'm going to start with the first one, 6 and 50 hundredths. Now I'm going to add the next one, remembering that I need to keep the decimals lined up. And then the next one, 12 will just go up here since there are no decimals. Put the invisible decimal there, fill in my gaps. Okay, and now I just have to add it all up. 5, 10, 15, 5, 6, 7, 8, 15, 16, 17, 6, 7, 8, 10, 18, 20, 2, 3, 4, 5. So in total, if I put these lines back to back, if I move this one up and put it right after this one and made one big long line, it would be 50 and 75 hundredths inches long. All right, so you try some on your own, and if you need help, just come back and rewatch the video. Good luck.